that this property was bought later, the house was relocated. I don't care what the history is. That's cool, okay? Now, so what I'm going to do though, I'm going to go into this image and I'm going to show you some of the things that I did to try to make it presentable. First of all, I've got a lot more in this image than I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this down to something that I find to be usable and perhaps a little bit more pleasant, okay? So I'm going to go maybe there, and you know, you all might crop it a little bit differently than I do, and that's all right. That's the thing about art is, you know, we get to, you know, it's art. We all see things differently. You know, some of us are just weird with our art, like Darren, you know. But we all see things a little differently, okay? And I think I just lost my mouse. I think my battery just died.
What about batteries you were saying?
I didn't bring batteries, but I brought
Who needs brains when you got batteries? And I have neither. Okay, so I've outlined my crop area, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to hit image and I'm going to go to crop, and you're going to see that takes it down to what I wanted. You all probably know that, okay? Now, when you load a picture into Photoshop that is, now how many, by a raise of hands, how many of you shoot in RAW? Your camera is set to RAW, okay? I used to, I typically don't anymore. I just have found other ways to get where I want to go. But I'm going to load another photo, okay, to show you something. When you load a photo into Photoshop that is a RAW file, this one here of Zion National Park is an example of a RAW file. So this is going to load. What happens is you get this edit bar over here that comes up automatically. When you are in Lightroom, as Kevin will show you, that bar comes up right away anyway. That's one of the first editing tools that you're going to see in Lightroom. But this bar comes up and it allows me to do all kinds of great edits in Lightroom or in Photoshop. Now I'm going to cancel that for now. I just wanted you to see that bar, okay? Because it only comes up automatically when you are loading a RAW file, okay? But when you're working with a JPEG file, all you have to do is go into your filters menu up here and go to where it says Camera Raw Filter, and it will open up the same tool for you to be able to make the same kind of edits, okay? Very, very powerful tool. And so, for example, on this, the first thing that I typically will do is I'm going to improve the texture. I'm going to go up to 25 or 30 on that. I've got it set to 27 here.
You mind if I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So texture is a new feature that they recently added, and it's super powerful. It's the small, not so sharp, not so edgy modifications. So previously you had clarity, and if you used it too much, you could really see the edges. Texture makes it better, like for animal fur and people and stuff. You would never use clarity on a person, but you could use texture on a person and fur and stuff. So texture is awesome unless you've got really blunt, sharp edges.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that is a new feature and I was glad to see it. Clarity is the other one that I'll typically ramp that up to about 25 or 30, same as what I'll do for texture. Now, the next tool that we have down here is called dehaze. That is a fantastic tool. It will add color and contrast like you would never see elsewhere, but you have to be careful with that tool for a couple of reasons. One reason you need to be careful on the dehaze tool is if I crank this up too far, what happens is up here in where we have edges like in the sky, you will see lots of pixelization. Your pixels show up like you colored this thing with a crayon, okay? Also, it will look like crayon because your tonal ranges separate into bands, like light, slightly darker, there are bands across there, and that's really ugly. So you can't go that far. I never go higher than about 35 on dehaze. Here's the other problem about going too far with dehaze and with clarity, and with one other tool I'm going to mention. We all shoot digital cameras that have digital sensors. Newsflash, in case you didn't know this, Every single one of you in the room has a dirty sensor in your camera. Did you know that? Every one of you. Doesn't matter how clean you think it is. It doesn't matter if you just took it to the shop and had it professionally cleaned. Your sensor still has spots on it. If you crank dehaze up too far and clarity up too far and highlights down too low, your pictures are going to look like they have chicken pox. And there's nothing you can do about it except go through and do all kinds of dust spotting. So you have to use these tools within moderation, or you're going to see things that you don't want to see. And it might make you paranoid and you'll over clean your sensor until you scratch it. Okay? So there are just some things we have to let it be and kind of work within limits. Okay? So on clarity, or on dehaze, I'm probably going to leave, I'm never going to go higher than about 35. Maybe sometimes 40, but I just don't want to go any further because all the posterization, the pixelization, and all those problems, I don't want to have to deal with that later. Okay, so don't overpower your images with that tool. The other thing that I like to do here, though, is this. How many of you like shooting HDR photos? You know what that is? High dynamic range. Many of your cameras can shoot HDR photos. I'm going to show you how you can do HDR without doing that in your camera. It's really simple, okay? In a photo like this, I'm going to lower exposure on this in just a little bit so you can see a little bit more of the detail, okay? Okay? How to get HDR out of Photoshop. Turn up shadows, turn down highlights. Because turning down highlights lowers the top end of the dynamic range, turning up shadows raises the bottom end of it, and now I have much more visible quality to my image. Everybody understand that?
Say it again.
Okay. When you're in this camera raw tool, whether you shoot raw or not, turn down highlights, turn up shadows. You don't have to do it all the way, just do it to where you find it to be pleasing for you. But what you have done is using this software program, you've created high dynamic range without having to do it in camera. One of the problems about doing it in camera is some of our cameras have to take multiple photos and then combine them later. Like you have to have it on a tripod to be able to do that because it takes two photos one after another. And if you're hand holding your camera, your HDR picture is now blurry. Okay? This way, it's not a problem. Okay?
Can I counter that?
Some cameras will
The
do
one
it.
benefit you get with using multiple photos is instead of having a 12-bit or 16-bit photo,
Yeah,
you get a 32-bit photo.
but you
So
have
you
to
get
use a
higher-
tripod to
Huh?
do it. You have to use a tripod to do it, or you're going to have to merge later. You know,
You can
yes.
also do auto align.
Photoshop does have a tool that will automatically align. So
I've used it, and it's
if you're slightly
usually
off, it'll line up for you.
usually accurate.
Yeah.
Sometimes it won't, because sometimes I might have been
Right.
a little cockeyed on the second one or something, but yes, it does.
It depends on how important the shot is for you. If it's really important, it won't work.
Clearly,
If you don't really
you
care,
know
then
my
it won't
experience
work.
there. Yes, thank you. Okay, so I've created an HDR photo by using highlights down, shadows up. I've got my texture at 27, clarity at 26, plus or minus a little bit, doesn't matter. Dehaze at 40, I won't go any higher than that, okay? And even that might be a little high for me. I'm going to turn it down to 35. Okay? Exposure's not bad. I might go down just a slight bit more. Okay? And I'm going to go and I'm going to save that right there. Okay? Not too bad so far. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a tool that many of you may not know about. But the first thing I'm going to do is I want to protect my original layer. Okay? This is the one thing that's really cool about Photoshop is you can use layers. How many of you use layers in your editing? Not very many. Okay? Layers are really cool. Think of it as you've got a picture, and now I'm going to put a piece of glass over the top of that picture, and I can color on that piece of glass without ruining my original picture. Kind of cool, right? Okay? So one of the first things I'm going to do is I want to create a duplicate of my original picture. So I'm going to go over here to where it says background. I got my list of layers right here. And I'm gonna go over to background, I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna tell it duplicate layer, right up here. See this? Okay, and it's just gonna, I can name it whatever I want. It's gonna be called background copy. Okay? Now watch this. What if I wanted to do something crazy, you know, I'm gonna set my color here to be something, you know, like that. Okay, cool. And you know, I want to go in here and I want to, you know, I'm going to show you. I'm going to get in here and ruin it. Okay. In fact, I'm going to really have fun with this. I'm going to crank this all the way up. Okay. Okay, look at that. All I have to do is go over here and declick that layer, and I'm back to my original. Okay. But I kind of like that. I'm going to keep it that way. No, actually, I'm not. I'm going to get rid of that.
Question?
Yeah.
Does Control Z work too?
Yes. Control, all of your normal Windows controls, Control X, Z, C, P, they all work.
What about Mac?
It's Command in the same. Command Z will work for
I have a
everything.
question.
Yes.
Okay. I work in RAW, so if I hit Control J to duplicate
That
my
duplicates
layer.
your layer.
Okay.
Okay.
So I know there's two different ways, and one of them, and I can never remember, you can go in and it creates a duplicate but a separate layer. Is that correct?
That's what this has done.
Yeah, that's
And that you can go into RAW
Mhm.
and edit that RAW separately.
Yes, you just have to
A
go to
different-
filter on that layer, camera raw filter.
No. I mean in the actual
Okay.
RAW file.
But once you go into when you start with the raw and you hit open after you've gone through your original edits over on the side, when you hit open, you're no longer in your raw file. You're now in a Photoshop document.
Right, but you can go back into your RAW file.
Well, you could because you're not destructing you're not doing anything to your raw. Your raw remains untouched.
The
You're
nice thing
now
about
using a
raw-
Photoshop document.
The RAW file editing versus camera RAW, my understanding was there are some things that are grayed out. Is that correct?
Kevin?
Do we know?
I don't, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I think your raw file remains untouched, and once you hit open, it becomes a Photoshop document. You know, it's a non-destructive way to be able to do all your editing.
You'll notice when you save in Photoshop, it doesn't allow you to save in CR2 or 3 or NEF or ARW or
You can't
whatever your
save
raw
raw.
file is. You can either save as a PSD or a JPEG or a TIFF
Okay.
or whatever.
You can't
but
even
cannot
save-
save it as a raw file.
You can't even save as a JPEG if you have layers. You have to flatten the image before you can save as a JPEG. That's part of one of the new versions.
Because I export as JPEG now. If I save as JPEG,
Out of
I
Lightroom?
export, then I don't have to.
Okay, maybe if you X, but when I save, it won't let me save unless I flatten.
Right.
Anyway, okay, let me get back. So here's where we are. Now I've created a duplicate of my background layer, and I'm going to edit this. I'm not touching the original. So if I do a bunch of edits and then I decide, you know, I really don't like this much, I can delete that. Like I just deleted the other one. Okay. But I want to show you a tool that many of you may not know about. A lot of you know about, you know, the burn and the dodge, and you know about the paintbrush, and you know, some of those things. How many of you know about the patch tool? How many of you know the patch tool? Okay, I'm going to show you this. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down here, down toward the bottom, where we have the footprints leading up to the cabin. See those footprints right there? Okay, little trail right there. Now, in my original image, I did not delete those because I thought it was a nice leading line going to the cabin. However, let's pretend for the sake of our class that I don't like those, okay? Now, there are several ways you could do this. I could take the paintbrush and try to paint this the same color as the snow, and that might work to a degree. But let me show you what this patch tool will do. The patch tool looks like that. See that? It's a little like a rectangle with little stripes around it, kind of like a bandage. Or a patch. Wow, imagine that. Okay? But here's how this works. if I circle the area, if I highlight the area that I want to patch, what I do is I drag that over to an area that I want to replace it with. So for example, you know, if I come over here and I like that piece of snow right there, see what that did? It replaced it. Now I may want to go back later and color that to fix it, but there are no footprints. Now if I do it over here, for example, I want to come up here and replace these footprints, I can drag this over here and replace that with a section of snow. That looks almost perfect.
So, Rick,
Yes.
I have found, because you have to, that I use lasso and content aware far more than I use patch.
Okay.
What tool are you using to do that?
What tool?
Yeah.
It's called the patch tool. It's down. You have to go patch. You have to go into your tool menu.
P-A-T-C-H.
Yeah, you have to go into your tool menu and add it to your add it to your toolbar. Okay. Okay, that's easy. Let me show you. Okay. If you go down to this last place, you have your toolbar on the left side. If you go down to the last place on the toolbar and open that up, there's an option that says Edit Toolbar. You can go in and see all of the tools that are available to you. There are all kinds of things that you really, most of them you don't use. And you can bring them over. Like if I wanted to add, say I wanted to add the red eye tool, which I don't, okay? But if I wanted to add that, I could bring it over here. And then if I hit done, then now my red eye tool is going to be in that special toolbox down at the bottom of my thing there, okay? So you can find the patch tool in your list of tools. Okay, anyway, so thank you for that, Kevin, about the content aware. I've only started using the patch tool. I've only started, but I will look at that with the lasso and the content aware.
You have looked at it? Yeah, if you just do an L, there you go. And then delete. Press your delete key. Nope.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so just do that, hit D for
Oh, you're
delete.
still in patch.
I am in
Go-
patch. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
do L for lasso.
okay, let me go ahead and do this just one
Okay.
more time. You know, I'm going to come over here, for example, I'm going to delete that, put that there, okay. See, my footprints are pretty much gone, okay? This works good for small areas, like if I want to do a small area or, you know, something like that, you know. Let me try this again. If I wanted to do a smaller area, it works better in a smaller area than trying to use a big area, but it's pretty effective. So if I go up here to my lasso tool, and then if I go and like
Highlight that whole area. Highlight the whole trail.
the whole trail, okay, trail, okay,
And then delete.
D for delete,
Just press the delete key.
okay,
Oh, it deleted your patch.
okay,
But if you go to edit, after you have the lasso selected,
Or just hit the delete key on the keyboard.
Yeah,
did hit the
yes,
delete
be
key.
content aware though.
Empty hit
Okay.
content.
Oh, yeah.
okay, so where do I go then? Edit?
Click.
Yeah, and then you should be able to content.
content aware fill halfway
Yeah,
down.
right down. There you go.
There you go.
Right there. You're in a different mode. I'll show up later.
Okay.
That's one of the demos I'm going to do.
Okay, all right. So anyway, back to my patch tool. Just, I wanted to show for those of you who don't, if you use it for small areas, like something like that, and I do mean small at the time.
So what if you were trying to do a person out of a picture? What would you use?
I would use the lasso and content aware, and I'll show you that. I can take out a person and you'll never know that he was there. And we didn't do anything other than circle them and get rid of them.
I think you're still lasso. Well, you know, you're selected.
It's kind of like patch is a clone in reverse. Is that weird to think about?
Yeah, there's something's weird. It's not.
Sing it from one place.
Change tools and see if it goes back.
Let's see where it is.
The clone is not this area.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we'll go to,
There we go, now it's working.
Oh.
All right, cool. Okay, so that's a tool that I wanted to show you, is to be able to use the patch tool.
Clone that airplane.
The content aware may be better. The one thing I find is that the patch tool is pretty effective for small areas, okay? It's getting rid of the footprints a little bit at a time, like if I, wanted to get rid of that, okay? They're gone, okay? Now, the other thing I wanted to show you though up here, I don't want that picnic table in the picture, okay? So there are a couple of things I did here. First of all, I'm going to go up here to the lasso tool, and I'm going to say, actually I don't want to lasso that. I'm going to replace where the picnic table is with something else. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab some snow. I'm going to hit Control C for copy. I'm going to hit Control V for paste. And then now what happens is it allows me to go up here and grab that section of snow and bring it up. And that isn't the exact right section of snow I really want. So I'm going to do that again. Okay. In fact, I'm going to delete that layer because I don't want that layer. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to do that again. Let's say I want to, let's do this. I'm going to come over here. Maybe we'll go over there, hit Control C, Control V, and I want to move that section over here like this. Okay? I can hit, and what I want you to see though is that when I hit Control V, it pasted, it created a brand new layer.
I think you might be able to do that in one fell swoop if you create a selection.
Yeah?
And doesn't it Control J with it selected? Doesn't that create just that as a layer?
I don't know Photoshop except for 5 things.
Okay.
Okay, I don't like to do too big of an area at once because I find that if I do, this area looks great, too many areas don't look that great, and I ended up having to repair them. So I have to do a little piece, and I can come over here and I can put that there, and then if I wanted, for example, now I've got to go back down here, if I'm going to copy more from the original, I have to go back to the original layer where I was copying from.
Right.
Okay, so what if I want to come up here now to my lasso tool and I want to copy over here? Maybe I want to copy some of this. Control C, Control V, bring some of that over here. Cover my picnic table up over here. That looks too hokey because it's too obviously the same. I can fix that. So I'm going to come over here, copy some snow. Control C, Control V. No.
What's interesting about Photoshop is there's 10 different ways to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so,
That's true. Okay, so I can do all kinds of things here where I can make it look more realistic. I can bring more of the grass, go back to my original layer, grab some more grass over here. Bring that up there. I need that layer to be on top. The other thing I want to point out to you too is that the layers go in an order. The higher numbered layers appear in front of the other ones. Okay?
one on top.
Yeah. So as I continue to patch this, and I'm not going to try to finish it all, but I just want to show you the concept. You can continue to repair and fix this as much as you want. But what I want to do is come over here and show you what happens if I declick these layers that I created. If I declick all of those layers, I have all of my original image back. Picnic table, footprints, everything. Okay? If I go back in and I start clicking layers, footprints are gone, table's mostly gone, table's more gone, table's more gone, more gone, more gone, pretty much completely gone, with the exception of a little bit of healing down below. Okay? So the one thing that you can do is work on, learn layers. There are lots of YouTube videos out there for you to be able to learn how to do layers, because you can do this, and if you decide, you know, that stinks, I don't like the way that looks, you can either just declick it or delete that layer.
Rick, Julia Cost is a Photoshop or an Adobe evangelist. Her videos are fantastic. She takes one topic, walks you all the, Julia Cost.
Is it KOSS?
KOST.
KOST. She is just absolutely
Okay.
fantastic.
Okay.
She's great.
So that's an example of some of the things that you can do with the patch tool or with the content aware. Play with them, learn them, get confident with them, play with layers. You can't hurt your image doing this, okay? If you have a raw image and you load it in here, you can't hurt your original raw file. Adobe won't let you. Your raw image remains intact. If you play with a JPEG, okay, and you do all this stuff, until you try to save it as your original file name, you can't hurt that file, okay? And if I try to save it right now, it is not going to let me save it as a JPEG. See, I've got all those layers over there, okay? If I try to save as, JPEG is not one of my options, okay? But if I go down here to where it says flatten the image, right there, which means that it combines all the layers into one. Now, if I wanted to, I could go down there and I could save it as a JPEG. It's right there. See that? If it isn't a Photoshop document with multi-layers, it is not going to let you save it as JPEG. That's a safety feature, which I like, yes.
It will, like I said, if you export as JPEG, then
Okay.
you don't have to go through that flatten.
Quit export
And it will
as-
keep your layers.
Okay?
Export as. But you'd have to undo your history and undo your layers. But it will allow you to export as JPEG. And you don't have to do the flattening.
And hopefully you rename it.
That's the key. You hopefully will. Okay? But you can't just go in here and hit save and oops, I just ruined my original. It won't let. So to go through the export thing, it's almost like you have to want to ruin your original file. Okay?
Well, the nice thing is if you go up to your history there,
Yeah.
you can go and undo that
Yeah.
and go back to your layers, and then you've got everything the way it was.
Yes. Even if you saved it, you can undo
Mhm.
Control Z all the way back to where it was and then resave it.
So Rick, question.
Yeah.
Do you use layers for doing settings changes, like a layer for your texture and a layer for your highlights?
You
Your
could.
bullet part?
You could. Let me give you an example of where I might use. I used layers when I did this originally, and I was more careful. I took more time. I got rid of that picnic table, and you would never know it. Even if you enlarged this to 100%, you would not know that there was a table there. I don't have time right now in our class context. I'd be wasting your time to get this perfect. I want to teach the concept, not create a perfect
Right.
image. Okay, but yeah, I did that in layers, because if there was a layer I didn't like, if I didn't think, oh, it doesn't look right, I can delete that layer and start over with that one. Okay, and I can do progress in layers too. So I made a certain amount of progress I liked. That next level was bad. I just delete that one layer and start from there and keep going. There are other things that I can use layers for things like that. Like I want to do a certain amount of work on the sky. I want it to be different on the ground. I can do a layer for the sky. Okay. There are, I'm trying to think of there, I just had another one in my mind. Okay, here's an example. I was in Zion National Park a month ago on a trip down to Arizona to visit family. The sun looked really great on some of the mountains, okay? There was that mountain at the south entrance called the Watchman. Some of you are familiar with that mountain in Zion, okay? The sun was just starting to get low, and that west face of the Watchman was starting to turn kind of reddish, but it wasn't as red yet as I wanted it. So what do? I went in, I took my lasso tool, this one, and I freehanded around the west face of the Watchman, like that, created a separate layer. Okay, watch this. I'm going to create a separate layer for this just for fun. Okay, or I'm going to go Control C, Control V. Now I have a separate layer. And now I didn't do that perfectly well. But see, now watch. I have that, just the face of the house in there. If I go into Camera Raw Filter, it's only going to pull up the face of the house as that I can filter. Now watch what happens. What if I want to change the color of the face of the house to something ridiculous? Okay, look at that. Okay, clearly it's ugly, but what I'm saying, what I did on that picture of the Watchman, I put more sunlight, if you know what I mean, on that west face to make it look more of what I was seeing with my eyes that the camera didn't pick up quite so accurately. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times what we are doing, you know, when we post-process our photos, we all have something different in mind. Some people love to really texture them. Some people love to really saturate their photos. Their sunsets are just incredibly vivid orange. That may not have been the way it really looked, but by the time we're done post-processing, it's got some serious eye catch. It's beautiful, okay? And that's okay. You know why? It's because what we do, we're not photojournalists. We're not trying to capture reality. We're not trying to make the news. We are artists. And if my perception, if what I'm trying to capture is a vivid piece of art, it's perfectly okay for me to embellish the saturation.
It's all subjective.
It is. It's up to the eye of the artist. And if you don't like it, click on, move on. Go look at somebody else's picture. Okay? But my point is, I changed the face of the Watchman to be more red so that it reflected the low, late day light, and it made it look so much better. And I did it by the lasso tool and going in and simply adding a little bit more warmth to the picture. That's what a layer can do. It's just like this layer. See, now if I go in here and I delete that layer, it's gone. Thank goodness. Yes, Chris?
I'm having a brain cramp on what it's called, but have you ever used the other tool where you can do it in gradation? That lets you gradate sections of your picture?
Yeah, the gradual filter.
That's the one.
Yeah, but that is more of a global theme that covers the whole photo.
No, you just,
No.
you
You
draw.
No.
The whole one.
You're
Oh yeah, okay, the vignette.
You're gonna love light
No.
Okay,
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
now?
I'll show you.
okay, you show
Am I
it.
stealing yours? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, you're good.
No,
You're just
like I
getting
said,
that.
there are some people here who know a lot about Photoshop. There are some of you here, I'm not teaching you anything, and that's okay. Okay, but some of you don't work with layers. It will greatly improve the power you have with post-processing if you work with layers. Patch tool is a great tool, content aware, I haven't used. There are a lot of other tools that I do use, and you guys probably haven't. That's okay. Photoshop is so incredibly powerful. We have so many things that we can do, so many different options. Let me go into a different photo, and I'm going to show you just another, for example. And I'm going to pull this one up just so you can see, as a quick example, what you can do to turn this into an HDR print. So I'm going to go to Camera Raw, the filter. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to show you something else you want to be careful of. So on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go texture, again, up to about 25 or 30, clarity, 25 or 30. I'm going to actually go dehaze on this to about 30. That's good, okay. Look at the beautiful sky. Isn't that great? Okay, but now watch what happens when I bring the shadows up, because look at, there's no detail. This is all so dark right in here, right? Okay, watch this. Okay, I'm going to turn this into an HDR print. Look how much detail I have. Look at the detail in the water, but now look at the sky when I bring the highlights down. Watch this section of the sky right here. Watch this. Okay? Okay? Makes a world of difference. It wasn't a bad photo to start with. What we've done is just make it so much better. Now, in doing this, I've created a little bit of a hard line up here in that cloud area right there. Not that that's bad or unreal, but I kind of don't like it. So I have a couple of options. I can go in, for example, with the paintbrush thing, I can do the eyedropper and maybe just grab a little bit of this color right here, go down to my, I'm actually going to create a layer to do this so I can get rid of it. Okay, but I want to go in, I want my flow, my paintbrush flow to be low. I want the opacity to be low. Okay, and then I can go in to that area right there, and I can kind of paint that so it's not quite so stark on the line. See that? There's another way to do it, and I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to create a background, a copy background layer here, so I don't get rid of my original. The other way I could do that is I could go down here to what's called the smudge tool. Okay? I want to make it a nice big tool, and you want to be careful with this because it'll smudge everything within local proximity. But I may want to, and you got to be careful because I could even smudge the mountain there if I'm not careful. But I could do this, and I could.
Are you left clicking every time you move the?
I'm left clicking and I'm letting it go, and it just kind of, you know, there are things like that that I could do. Just learn your tools, learn what works best, find what you have confidence in, and run with it. Yes.
One thing with that smudge tool that I've learned the hard way,
Yeah.
if you do a big area, get up
Oh, it's
from your
just-
computer, walk away, you might as well go get something to eat because it's going to take forever.
It could,
But
depending on the speed of your
Yeah.
computer. But the
Yeah.
other thing too is, like I was saying, it'll smudge more area than
Yeah.
what you touched.
Mhm.
If I did one the other day on Bryce Canyon,
Mhm.
and I was just above the tree line. I was smudging a cloud that didn't look right. I was above the tree line, but it reached down and it made the trees look like they went like this. Okay?
I think there's a way to mask what you touch, but I don't know what it is. I think there's a way to freeze it out
Well,
in
you
certain
can.
areas.
Well, but
Yeah,
what
you
you
can.
could do though is that you can mask the sky and make it a separate layer and do that.
There is a select sky feature in both
Okay.
Photoshop and
Okay.
Lightroom.
But now,
so that
see,
you can mask that out.
I could do one of two things. I
Or
could
mask
either,
it.
I could
Well,
get rid of this.
Say you're doing something like that on a person.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You're not going to select. You can hold it for, say, a belt, mask a belt,
Yeah.
and then what do you call it? Smudge it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh. You can do that.
Move something else.
You've got
So
the
it
blur
doesn't-
tool, the smudge tool. You've got just a lot of, you know, great tools in here that you can, and here's what I recommend, everyone, just play, get on YouTube, learn about layers, learn about how to work with them, because some of the tools won't work in certain layers. Like if I add a new layer that's blank and I want to dodge and burn, it won't work because there's nothing in the layer for me to dodge and burn. I have to be in the original level, which is why it's always smart to make a background copy, because I can dodge in a background copy, but I can't do that you know, if I'm not on the layer that needs to be affected, okay? So, any questions? That's all I want to talk about with Photoshop. That's all the time I have. We could spend all night on it, but Kevin, you know, we need to just, any questions while he's getting set up?
So,
Yeah, could you go over that whole thing again?
Yeah, I could. Okay, just meet me in my office tomorrow too. In my office, I only charge $200 an hour. Only. Hey, look,
How about a half gallon of lemon ice?
so
that's worth more than $200.
I'm going to disagree a little bit with Rick, which is good.
wrong.
Everyone has their favorites. So Photoshop is amazing. You can do things in there, and I've seen people do amazing stuff that you could never touch with Lightroom. Lightroom, though, for me, is more than a batch large thing. Lightroom is a if you want to automate a lot, which if you want to be super creative, Photoshop is your thing. But if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time and get a fabulous picture, That's where I use Lightroom, and I cheat. I've talked to some people, and I press auto in Lightroom, and people go, I would never do that. That's, you know, it gives me a starting point.
Yes.
The other thing, though, that it does is for both of these, for content aware and for auto and Lightroom, it is using AI. Everything that everyone does in Lightroom is being understood by the artificial intelligence engine behind it, and you're taking advantage of it. So when I started with this, I had no clue what I was doing. I press auto. I'm taking advantage of what everyone out there has ever done, and it's giving me a great starting point. So let me just walk you through a workflow a little bit of some things, and I like walking around and moving. This is not the way that Lightroom will teach you. Lightroom, you normally put in your card and you do an import. I don't like that because it leaves the original on the card, and then I have to go back and remove it from the card and do something with it. So what I do first is I take it from the card and I put it on my computer. I've moved it, okay? And then I always move it to my import folder. I right click and I sync. I happen to have already done this with 5 photos. So voila, there's my 5 photos. Now I'll go over some of this here in a little bit, over in this section, but I'm just going to skip it for right now, and I say import. Lightroom does not touch your original. It's like Photoshop, but it actually approaches it very differently. Photoshop, you create a brand new picture and you do layers on top of it. Lightroom, it has a database of what your picture looks like, a thumbnail, and then it applies database settings on it. It never touches your original, okay? Which is actually confusing a little bit, because if you make changes and you love it in Lightroom, and then you go to your file on disk, you don't have those changes. It never touched it, okay? It's non-destructive. So, one other cool thing, this is smart previews. Let me just show you real quick. I have, let me switch to this. I have 114,000 pictures.
Is that all?
Yeah.
You need to get out more.
They are on a drive at home. They're not on my laptop. I can come in and do whatever I want with this picture, because Lightroom creates what's called a smart preview. It's a very high quality preview, and I can edit and do whatever I want, and I've never touched the original, and the original's at home. Once I connect it, then it's all good. So I can take my laptop with me, tweak and do things. I can't export it because it needs the original to export, but I can do all the editing I want without the photos actually being present. So it's actually pretty amazing that way. So it created, let's see, right there, it created previews. So I'm going to show you a little bit what I was mentioning with Rick. Now, I don't know Photoshop, and so I don't know how Rick wasn't getting it. I don't tweak Photoshop, so I get the default, which is content fill. And I'll show you that in a minute. But watch what happens here. I'm going to do auto. Okay, kind of okay. I'm going to move to the develop module. And I'm going to do what Rick was mentioning. I'm going to take the highlights down. I'm going to take the shadows up. I'm going to take the dehaze over. This is a JPEG, and it's off my cell phone. I'm going to take that to use this tonal curve, and I like it. It adds some contrast and allows me to do some stuff there. Now, this is one trick that I don't know how it does it, but I almost always do it. I go to the calibration and the blue, and watch what happens with my colors in almost everything. They become way brighter. Now this is way over the top, but I'm going to turn this on and off real quick, and there it is without the calibration. It made everything more vibrant. Now, it overdoes the blues. So, I go down and I take down my blues. So now I've got really, and I'll show you on some other pictures, you'll see it a lot more. Now, this is a farm field, and I took a beautiful sunset, and I want to get rid of this. I'm going to right click, whoops, be in the picture. Yeah, edit in, Photoshop. Now, you can do it to the original or a copy. I always accept the default. So it will create a new picture, and it'll take that new picture and take it into Photoshop. And there it is in Photoshop. Let me shrink down.
How did you do that, Kevin?
I right click on the picture,
Yeah.
and then there's an edit in, and then Photoshop is there. If you've loaded both of them, it's right there.
You don't even have to load Photoshop, it'll load it for you.
It'll
Yeah,
load
load
Photoshop for you.
Assuming it's on your computer.
Now, watch this. These are the few keys I know. I'm going to press L for lasso, and I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to press my delete key. Here's where it says content aware. So I'm not sure how Rick wasn't getting it. There's probably some default setting. I'm going to press OK. Okay, kind of okay. Not all that great.
So it basically did what the patch tool does. Because it moved.
It actually did a little bit better because it merged the colors and stuff so that you don't have
Right.
an exact patch over.
It just
So-
moved that thing over to, yeah.
Look at-
It took a section of a.
Look at how it completely removed that.
Yeah,
I don't
Now-
have all of those.
okay.
What's that?
Those have Photoshop.
This is Photoshop. So I did an edit, I did a right click, edit in Photoshop, and I'm doing an L for Photoshop. And I'm going to get rid of this guy.
Okay.
Now, I don't like this. So I'm going to do lasso this. And if I spent a little bit more time, now this stuff is really bad. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a heal, and I'm going to do spot healing, and I'm going to increase my brush size. Now, spot healing does I stand up. I don't like that stuff, right? So one thing that I do is, instead of spot healing, what I will often do is my stamp. I press the Alt key over here where I want the grass, so it'll take my image from over here, and it'll apply it over here.
Nice.
I'm going to hold down the Alt key. Hold down the Alt key. And you get the idea. Hold down the Alt key right here. Now watch this. I want my grass line to be right in here. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, move my mouse, release it, and I could continue doing this. I've taken out junk from a farm field.
Yeah.
And then I exit, save it, and I now have a new photo. So Lightroom cannot do that good of stuff. It does have a patch, and it has a heal, and it has a spot heal. It would never work on something that big, that much.
It does have contact aware fill.
What's that?
It does have contact.
Yes, it does, but it's still it's not near as good as Lightroom for
I
that.
agree.
So,
Kevin?
yep.
When you hit save in Photoshop, what did that do with the changes you made? How did it get them back into Lightroom?
So Lightroom and Photoshop are working together, and what happened in the background is Photoshop created a brand new picture. It was called DC00 something edit .tiff, and when it came back in, it told Lightroom about it, and now I have two pictures. One is edit TIFF, and the other is actually that was still a TIFF. No, let's see, where'd that go? Oh, right there. This one is my JPEG. and this one's my TIFF. So it created a separate file for me, and it exported it as a TIFF file. Okay, now let me show you how Lightroom can do some decent stuff. I'm going to go to the heel, and under the heel you have three options. One is content aware remove, one is heal, and one is clone. These are decent for small things or where it's really obvious. This is not small, but there's really science about what I'm going to remove. So watch this. I'm going to choose this and I'm going to highlight it. Don't like that. Highlight it. Now this is where, before it worked really well for me, but it'll do this. See how it's got the blue in there and you don't, I mean, it's not all that great? Photoshop would do far better. If I exported this as Photoshop, I would not have that problem.
One thing I've noticed is if you hit refresh, it will change how it's.
Okay? It's getting better. When I did this the first time, it took it out and you couldn't tell it was there. If I start playing with it like this and I'm having a little bit of trouble, I will go into Photoshop, because Photoshop I'd use the lasso, I'd circle it, and it would be gone.
Especially if you have a graduated sky, like different tones in the
Right.
sky. Yeah, that gets complicated, and you know, it's going to take a little bit more effort to make that look right.
Now, watch what happens when I do the auto. Pretend this guy's not here. And in fact, it won't be. So,
I see a cloud.
what I would normally do, and this is just my workflow, I would go to here, I'd start cropping it down, and I'd get something like this. Okay? Now, what way cool thing in Lightroom, if I play with, like Rick said, these are global, okay? So notice how it is, it's really kind of messing it up, going too far. Rick was spot on. You use this sparingly, but it's actually pretty good for some stuff. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into masking. Lightroom has a fantastic artificial intelligence for masking. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do it two ways. A new way is an object, this option here. Before, you always had subject. So I'm going to tell it subject, and it'll find the duck for me. Now, what I don't like about this is, notice here in the feathers, it's selected that. I told it to select purple so it really stands out. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to delete that. I don't know if this is an official Adobe policy, but I mean a product thing, but I have found if I use object, it's far better. So I'm going to paint over this guy. You do not need to be accurate. Now, I don't have that problem with the subject of the feathers. Now watch what I do here. This is just way cool. Bring up the shadows. I'm going to bring up the whites. I'm going to bring down the blacks a little bit, maybe not. I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. I want to give it a little bit more color, or maybe not. I don't really care. I can do whatever I want here. I am going to bring up the dehaze. Nah.
Yeah, that dark is it.
I'm going to take up the sharpen. And let's kick up the shadows quite a bit more.
One thing that's really cool there is you have a list of your edits on the left under history,
Yes.
where you can easily see. You can go in and delete.
From here it goes up, but I cannot delete something in the middle.
Okay.
Okay? But I can press this reset button and get right back to no edits.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you, in Lightroom, because I don't use it, so you know how you were selecting that bird on the right,
Uh-huh.
and it was coming out badly? So in Photoshop, they have what's it called? a color adjustment for that, and they also have a structure that you can change the number as to how much is
So,
adjusting that.
yeah.
Does Lightroom do that or not?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm aware of what you said. I've never used it. But let me just show you again the example here of Lightroom or Photoshop. I did an edit. I'm going to choose the lasso. I'm going to choose the duck. Delete. Content aware. It's gone. And no hassles. I'm going to exit, save it. I've now got a new picture. So now I'm going to go in, I press the auto. It still had something there, yep. So anyway, you get an idea there where you can do masking. Let me show you a few others.
If you did auto before you did the delete of the duck, then it probably would not be the gun.
I don't know. I've seen Lightroom on a large thing like that. So here's a good example where Lightroom works really well. I'm going to choose the heel, and I want to get rid of this spot. I want to get rid of that spot. I want to get rid of that spot. I want to get rid of that spot. So I have actually done this with some of my pictures where I wanted, it just got too kind of noisy. And so Lightroom is fantastic for edits like this. Okay. Also, I've had dust on my lens big time with my sensor. Lightroom has a way cool feature where you could say visualize spots. And if I had dust on my lens, you would see big, nice circles just like you do down here. And I could just go in and clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, clean it up, etc. That's under heal. So I went to the healing, and then I clicked on visualize spots, and it shows you everything there. I think I purposely brought in one that I have some spots that I'll show you. So, another way cool thing. I want to straighten the horizon. So I'm going to go into my crop overlay. And right here is my angle. And I'm going to say my horizon is from here to there. I'm a little off. It automatically adjusted for me. Go for it.
Okay, one thing that I just discovered, there are two versions of Lightroom.
Oh, yeah.
There's Lightroom Mobile, which goes on your phone or laptop or tablet, whatever. Then there's Lightroom Classic. The two interfaces don't look the same. So if you're not looking like this, you've probably got regular Lightroom up instead of Lightroom Classic. So make sure your little icon says LRC, and then bring that up, and that will make it look like what he has.
Adding on to that, they're trying to make Lightroom Cloud. They're calling it Lightroom now. They went through all kinds of names. Lightroom is now Lightroom Cloud. They're trying, and it's mobile. It's actually nice. I can go on my phone, I can go on my tablet, my desktop, everywhere, and do the edits. It's not as powerful as Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic. It's getting there, but it's not there yet. You go out and you read things about people using it. They will only use mobile when they're on a tablet and they need to. If they want powerful stuff, they'll use desktop. Now, I'm going to do the auto again and watch. So it did some decent there. You know what? I'm going to use this, and I'm going to say this is supposed to be white. Actually, this one right here. That's supposed to be white. It changed the colors for me. Now, I find that Lightroom does it too much, so I bring down my blue, my yellows a little bit. I'll take my highlights down. Now, to one thing that Rick said, if I wanted to take my highlights down, I'm going to screw up this picture. I want to do it even further. I'm going to go to masking. I'm going to tell it to find the sky. It found the sky, and I'm going to take my highlights in the sky down even further, shadows down. It's not making a difference here, why
I
not?
think you lost your mask, or did you?
Oh, did I? I'm not on it, yep. Nope, I am. You just can't, there we go. But you can see I can just be adjusting the sky without anything else. And in fact, one of the things I do for my ice shots and water shots, this is way cool, watch this. I'm going to select this again, new mask. I'm going to tell it to find the sky, and I'm going to invert it. So now it's everything but the sky. And I will sharpen, I'll take the water in the mirror. I want to create clarity around the water. I'll take the sharpness up, the clarity up. I will take the dehaze. Where did my dehaze go? Right there. I'll take that up, and etc. And I'll set the temperature a little bit, you know, do something with it or not, kind of stuff. And I can quickly, easily have two different things. This is with the mask off and with the mask on.
Kevin,
Yes,
is that feature available in Photoshop?
it is.
I have done the sky feature there, but I've never done the invert.
Yes, you
Me and
can.
Yeah, I'm sure. Almost everything I'm sure. I'm near
I know
positive.
they're partners, I get it.
But I can't find how to do it after watching video after video after video after video. Here I press a button, there I have to go back to the video and redo it because I don't do it often.
I learned how to do it a while back when I was learning about luminosity masking. And I learned it, I'll have to go back and find my notes, but yes, you can.
Okay.
Do you mean the mask? If you're selecting a mask?
She wants to find the sky and then invert.
your mask.
Invert selection, under selection
Thank you.
is all you gotta do.
Yes. I think it might be like Control I or something like that to.
So this is one that we took at Deer Creek. Do that guy. I will find my white. A little bit too yellow for me. I'll take it down. Take my highlights down. My shadows up. My dehaze. I mean, look at that. And now watch, this is kind of cool. Before, after. That's how fast it was. So you can do all of this in Photoshop. I even challenge a professional Photoshop person to do it as fast as I did it here. Now,
Now it's.
It's on. It's on like Donkey
but
Kong.
Rick and a Photoshop person could probably do it better.
And with ducks.
And with ducks, yes. So here's where, you know what, I don't like this gunk. I'm going to go to heal. Whoops, that wasn't the heal. So there are two different flavors of heal. These two flavors, clone and heal, are the old ones. The newest part is content aware. And personally, I have found content aware to be the best. There have been a few times that I've used content aware and it's sort of screwed it up, and I went to heal and it worked. I don't know why, but I would come in here. Whoops. I moved my mouse. I moved.
You move pictures.
Yeah.
In answer to your question, as far as Photoshop, if you go to select and you go down about halfway, you can select sky.
And you can see how quickly I am just removing the dots in the picture. Okay. So I would also come down here and I do a little bit of clarity. Now again, this is graduated filter. I want to do the clarity around the water, not the sky. And now I'm going to increase saturation just a little bit, and just to show you what it would do if you're going overboard. I'll increase clarity to make it a little bit more reflective. Do the dehaze, sharpness. Now, Lightroom has texture, clarity, and sharpness. Clarity will do you'll get a high contrast between edges, big time. If you use it too much, you'll see it too much. Sharpness is more fine, and you can go out and read, and I've read it, and they've said why, I don't understand it. But sharpness I will use quite a bit. Clarity I will use very sparingly.
Yeah.
Texture I'll use on people or animals and fur that I don't want the sharp, a piece of fur sticking way out. Go for it.
Yeah, just let me emphasize that about the clarity and the dehaze feature. In addition to the other problems we've mentioned, if you overuse those in an area where there's contrast, like if you have a mountain range and then there's sky, if you overdo that, you're going to see a white line, a very obvious line between the two that looks like, you cut and pasted. It's kind of unattractive. So you have to be careful not to overuse those in areas of high contrast, because you're going to get a distinctive white line between those two areas.
Clarity will also change color balance.
Well,
if
it
you
does.
use too much.
It does, but you're going to get a line right in the middle of the contrast that's just going to really make your picture unattractive.
So here are two pictures. They're the exact same picture, cropped. And the blue calibration is what made this difference. Watch this. And I'm not going to go through. Actually, we will. We're going to go into develop. I'm going to do my auto. I always do that. Hey, that's actually pretty nice. Take it down a little bit. Now watch what happens. I always do my tone, and because it adds more contrast to stuff, and I think I like it a lot. I'm going to do my dehaze a little bit, but now, and again, dehaze, well, actually that's not too bad. Okay, so now watch this. And you can go overboard with this. Look how it brings out those colors.
What is that?
Saturation, not the blues.
No, it was under calibration.
Oh, you did
You're
calibration.
supposed to be able to say, here's my true blue. You're calibrating your blue. I don't know what it does. I always use this. It'll bring, now greens, it will take it up too much. And a blue, if this sky was already seriously blue, it would really destroy it. So what you do is you take your blue down right here, and I use that calibration blue primary saturation. That one didn't even destroy it that much. Sometimes you'll notice, here's one. It'll just destroy it. So here, I've taken my blue down. There you go. See how it destroyed it? It made a world of difference on the yellows. Look at how it made that just pop out. But it really made my sky ugly. That's fine. I take my blue down. It messes up greens also. So if I have a lot of grass in it, I'd have to take my saturation for my green down also. On sunset pictures, that blue calibration, watch this. It just, but here I messed up my blues, and this to me looks a little bit off, so I would take it down. Okay? Again, the auto, this is way cool. This is reset and auto.
Now, question for you.
Uh-huh.
You just did the reset in the auto. If you wanted to remove the auto, you could remove that most recent?
Yes.
Okay,
I can come here and I can say clear above that,
perfect. That's
and I've got everything back.
Sweet. Okay.
Go for it.
Wow. All right.
One other thing, I don't want to undo it. Right click on the image, create virtual copy. Then you can go ahead and reset that from scratch. Play with it all you
Without
want. You
losing
can
what
go
you-
black and white. You can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't affect that first image.
Got it.
And it's all
Yep.
database entry anyways.
Yep.
Very interesting.
I do that all the time.
Let me see what we're doing okay on time. I wanted to show you a little bit creativity, what I did here too. So my original picture
Save that window and that's what everything further.
was that.
So like this is.
That's a
seen
raw
from
file.
Photoshop.
That's my raw
let's say I
file.
wanna
I
do
can tell by the
something
colors,
with
that's a
that, but I
definite
want
raw.
this.
And this is way
You
cool.
want- now I can turn it
Notice
around.
my saturations on everything but the yellow and green are way down. That's how I took all of them. I always, let me do a reset so you see the difference. Lightroom has camera settings where every camera has a lens correction. Horizon might be just a tad curved on it, and I just click that and it knows that I'm using a Tamron 150 to 500, and it's got an auto correction for that. Same thing with chromatic aberrations. I don't normally see that one as much, so I really don't know exactly what that does, but I choose it all the time. The other thing I do almost all the time for my landscapes is I will choose a landscape color. Let me find let me go here. Oh, that's a JPEG. That's a JPEG. Nope, that's a RAW. Nope, that's a JPEG. Let me go here. Watch what happens when I quite as vibrant. So that one's decent. So for my landscapes and sunset, sunrise, I almost always choose Adobe Landscape. Now, it has a little bit too blue in it, so I'll take my blues down. Now, so what I'll do is when I bring in, if you recall, I brought in some pictures. When I do an import, and let's just, they're already there. Let me see if I can get something. I messed up my scenario, but when you do an import, you can choose a preset. So let me show you how I create a preset. I come to a picture. I'm going to show you this guy here in a minute. Previous import. Let me go here. On my settings, so I'm going to do a reset. It will not do the landscape on a JPEG. This one it will. So let's reset. I'll choose Adobe Landscape. See how it brought out some of the colors. And I will choose my profiles. And then I come here to a preset and I create a preset. Here are all the settings I want. And since I only changed that, this is an easy way for me to do it rather than go through and select everything. I'll call it that. And now when I import, I can import 50 pictures. I can say import them all with that preset and they're automatically set with those, and I don't have to remember to go back to do them. One other thing that I do is when I do an import, and I have, I was going through my pictures and I couldn't find a real good scenario. In fact, I probably could, but it was taking too much time. Sometimes the pictures are way dark, right? They're underexposed and you can't quite see them. When you edit them, they come out really nice. So one thing I will do almost all the time if I've got a series like that, I'll select them all and I'll choose auto. It's going to do the wrong thing. I'm not going to want it. But if I've got dark pictures or overexposed pictures, it will make them so I can at least see them decently. And then I'll go in and I'll say, that one looks good. And now I will undo. I'll go into develop and then I'll reset it and say, okay, now let's play with it and do what I want to do with it. Okay? I'm going through a lot of stuff. Is this useful stuff for you?
Yes.
Okay. This is one of the way coolest.
You know somebody's a nerd when they're saying something's way cool about software. Okay?
Okay. I'm going to show this for a couple things. This was a stacked photo. I took 19 pictures, changing the focal point of the picture. I'll show you how I can make a wonderful picture out of it, but also Lightroom allows me to do this. Pretend it wasn't focus stacked, okay? And I took a lot of pictures and I want to find the best focus picture. I'm going to do a C for compare. I'm going to do an F for full. Whoops. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of that guy, and let's do the see to compare. Now I'm gonna zoom in. I pretend I want this one, and I wanna find the picture that's the best focused for that. I can see that this guy is far better than that guy. So I will say I want that one. I'll make him the select. And now I go on to the next picture. I still like this guy for that. I'll go to the next. And I went through, and they're almost all the same. I focused on the eye, and I quickly went through 25 Fox pictures and found the one that had the eye in the most focus, and that was the one I wanted, kind of thing. And so the workflow was really easy there.
Which you cannot do in Photoshop.
Another thing that I do, and you
photo
won't.
stack or focus stack in Photoshop?
No. That was just comparing
The
and zooming in
comparison thing.
and looking at the eye.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, this is focus stack. Way
Focus
cool.
stacking, so that's what I had to ask.
So, I took 19 pictures. I right click. I edit in. Now, you do not edit in Adobe Photoshop. You open as layers. Okay? And this would, let me see, do I have Photoshop open? I do not. This takes some time, especially with 19 pictures. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to show you what it would do if I brought them all in. Whoops, that was not what I wanted. This is so easy. I did this with my wife's orchids. I took pictures of the orchids and I just sort of went through the different layers. I had a remote shutter control. My camera was on a tripod. I moved my focus point. I looked at it and I had the focus highlights in red so I could see what was in focus. And I just moved the focal point further and further back until I got everything in focus. And then I
Pray there's no wind.
yes. This was indoors. And you can't do it with shadow because the shadows might change it.
Incoming voice call from me.
You probably will call back. So here, I'm in Photoshop, and I've got my 19 photos all lined up here. This took a little bit of time to do. So I simply come in here with them all highlighted, and I say auto align. It will find the edges. It'll all align them all so that they're all now, every picture you take has a little bit of movement type of thing, especially when you're moving your camera. It generally works pretty well when you have some good edges. So the leaves have some good edges so I can find it. Now that still looks bad. But now I blend all of them together.
What command did you just go to?
Edit, auto align, edit, auto blend.
Is it blending for the sharpness automatically, or do you get to select something?
You can select something. I have not figured out how to do that properly, so it will create a mask in Photoshop. And if you know how to do layers and masks, you can go through and say, it didn't do it quite like I wanted, and you could unmask and mask it.
You got your masks right there.
Yeah, I've not figured that one out. So if it doesn't work for me, I skip it.
It auto masks, you can see them on the right.
But you can see all of my flowers are now in focus, whereas before they were not. And then I simply exit. I save, and now I will edit it in Lightroom, and when it comes, it's taking a while to say, yeah, there we go.
So, a question, something I missed. When you're leaving Photoshop to go back into Lightroom, what command? You just hit?
I
save?
just exit, and because Lightroom and Photoshop know about each other, it created the photo in the background and it puts it into
Okay, so you
Lightroom.
just exit Photoshop and automatically saves your edit file?
Yes, it saves my edit file as a text.
Gotcha.
It
And
knows
what
that
I-
you came from Lightroom, so that's why it's in the
Right,
back.
so it just saves it as an edit TIFF.
Right, and you can select, like,
Okay.
when I do that, I do it as a PSD rather than a TIFF.
Right.
Just because I prefer PSD over TIFF.
Me
There's,
too.
you know, it's just
Okay.
a thing. But you can
See-
save it however you want. As soon as you do it, you go back
Yeah,
to
see,
Lightroom.
I wasn't
it's
kidding
there.
when I said I don't know Lightroom, so that's why,
So you can see, this is my finished product. Here, I did not do my focal point correctly. I missed that one. But you can see everything else is really pretty darn good. I did not focus on that on purpose, but they're all there.
What was your f-stop?
What's that?
What was your f-stop for depth of field?
I chose f8 because on my camera, that's what I heard is the best for the lens and the camera that I have. If I go over, I think my camera loses sharpness on it, so f8, f9 is about the best.
It's the lens that causes that loss of sharpness.
It's the lens,
It's the
okay.
fraction off of the aperture blades that does it.
So,
So was there probably less than an inch difference between your nearest and furthest?
oh yes, even less than that. The whole flower setup was that big.
So
He's shooting with a macro lens.
f8,
No, actually, I did not
No?
shoot with the macro lens. I shot with, in fact, you can see, Lightroom tells you, I shot with an 18 to 200 and I was doing it at 87.
87 millimeter.
Oh.
I'm
So you're just very
surprised
close.
that with less than an inch of depth of field needed,
That's why you have to focus stack.
that you had to take 19 shots
Mhm.
to get everything in focus.
Yeah, it
And so much
was,
of that, I bet there's
Because your
three
depth of
identical
field,
distances amongst the 19.
your depth of field is like a couple of millimeters on
Yeah.
each shot. It's really, really shallow.
so let me show you just a few. Oh, okay, so let me also show you, and we're getting out of time. So Lightroom allows you to organize your pictures very well. So you saw my workflow is actually pretty good. I can get some really good stuff. I have seen amazing stuff in Photoshop, okay? But I can get pretty darn good stuff. But now I can tag them, I can find them, I can sort them. So it's got what's called smart selections. So on this one, what I might do here is I will tag them all as orchids. Okay? I might tag them as flowers and plants, which I already did, and I might tag them as close-ups. Now, out of my 113,000 pictures, here are all my close-ups that I have marked as 5-star. So the other thing I'll do is my workflow. I will go in and I've got tons of pictures. In fact, the swan pictures, let me just show you that we did 2023 right here. Open that up and Delta Snow Goose. I have 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. So I quickly went through and I said, okay, I don't like that one. 2. That's still it. Okay, that one's actually kind of interesting. I haven't edited, I haven't done anything. My 3s. And now I've got my interesting shots. Now, this one's edited, and I wanted to show you this one too. This is so, I got to go back to smart things, but what I did here was, in fact, let me go to develop. Watch what happens when I do a before. This is after. Wait, where? I'm not on my edited. Oh, that's a copy. That's why. No. So here's my original. Now, what I did was I used object masking and I highlighted this guy. In fact, let's do it. I'm going to do a reset. I lost everything I did. That's okay, I can get it back easily. I'm going to do a mask, and I'm going to do an object, and I'm going to say I want this goose. In fact, I will make, whoops, let me undo that. I'm going to make it the brush bigger. I want this guy. That's pretty darn good. Now, I will invert.
So you got the head of the other.
I did, so I can remove it. So subtract this. Actually, I want to add because my pink is now. And I'm going to do an object. There he goes. And if I wanted to, I could remove this. But watch. So I did an invert. So I selected my object. And now I want to deprioritize the background. So I created a custom thing that says fade background. And it takes the shadows down a little bit. It takes exposure down a little bit. But even better, it takes texture clarity down, dehaze down. It increases the noise. So a lot of times if you have noise, you want to get rid of the noise. And what that does is it smooths it all out. I want to smooth out the background.
That works well as long as it's not sky that you're doing it to.
Yes. And, in fact, let's do, I'm going to just do it real quick again. We're going to select the object. We're going to find that guy. And didn't get it, so I'm going to add in the head object. There it goes. Now, it's way cool also. I can do an add, and in fact, let me go to, it's struggling a little bit with that, the wings. I can do an add, I can say a brush. Wherever my plus symbol is at, it knows that that's what I want, and it will not select anything that's not black. Voila, I added it. Okay, you can use that for a variety of things. You can do luminance. I can say select, in fact I'll show you in a little bit, but let me just bring this up a little. So I'm going to, and I'm going to do this just on purpose. I'm going to bring up the whites, bring up that, bring up the contrast. Now,
Oh, crazy.
That's great.
notice my background is faded and my foreground duck is there. That's how I got, well, let me get back to what I had. History, and right there. That's how I got that. The ducks in the background are kind of not, they're there, but they're not focused. And I sharpened the foreground, the duck. I contrasted the duck, and I added saturation to the duck, and I added white, etc. So that's how I got that picture. Let me show you one other thing with masking that is just super powerful. Let's say I want to mask all of the rock here real quick. I can go to develop, do a mask, and I can say color range, and I can select that, and voila. Now, I don't like this color range, so I've got a slider, and I can sort of bring it in or bring it out a little bit. Okay? Now, even more powerful, I can say, let's get rid of that. I want to get more specific. I want to create an object mask, and I'm going to just quickly select this guy. It did a pretty good job. If I had accidentally gotten some other junk in here. I can now intersect this, and let's say I got some sky in. I'm just going to, let's do, I don't know what that's going to do for me. Okay. Now I'm going to say I want this mask to be very specific, intersect with color range, that color. I do not have to be, to get very, very, very exact masking. Yeah, so, and in fact, yeah, here I can subtract right here, and color range, and that guy. Kind of stuff. Okay, there's some good YouTube videos out there. They show very exact stuff, and then I can play with just this thing and do whatever I want. Sharpen it, foreground, make everything else background, etc. So the masking and the tools in Lightroom are just phenomenal. We were talking about the subscription. People are sort of frustrated that Lightroom's a subscription, but you get all of this added as they add new features.
You always have the latest updates.
You always have the latest, and the AI behind it is phenomenal.
For $10.
So,
$10 per month.
$10 a month.
per month.
Isn't it, is it?
Photography
No,
plan.
yes, no.
$10 a month and you
No.
get Lightroom Cloud, and Photoshop.
Lightroom Classic and Photoshop for $10.
Right, but you also get bridge. There's a whole list of stuff you get for the $10. You don't have to use it all, but there's a
Yeah,
whole
you
list
get the
of
camera
stuff.
feature.
Hi.
Is that per device?
2 devices per account.
Thank you.
No,
So-
oh yeah, you can do it.
So actually, for the Lightroom mobile, they expect it to be on any device you want.
Okay.
For the Lightroom Classic, technically their licensing is one person, one device at a time, but because they know people use it on multiple devices, so long as you're not using it on one device while somebody else is using it on another device at the same time. That's
Okay.
technically breaking it, but they don't do anything to
So I
protect it.
have to get rid of that
Okay.
alter personality?
Okay, yeah, you can use it and so can you. I have what's called Adobe Creative Cloud, and I have Lightroom, and I have Lightroom Classic and Photoshop and the Camera Raw. My license for $10 per month plus tax, it's like $10.66. Yeah. Yeah, it comes with it. I can have that on 2 devices at a time. I have it on my home desktop computer and on my office at work desktop computer. And in order for me to be able to put it on this so I could come and present tonight, it made me log into my Adobe account and say, okay, which of the other computers do you want to log out on so you can put it on here? I can have active on 2 devices at a time. That's it.
But the cloud, as many devices as you want. In fact, the cloud, and it's just called Lightroom, it's not called Lightroom Cloud. But Lightroom, I can have it on my desktop and use it there.
I just noticed it made me put a specific Lightroom on it.
Laptop?
It's my iPad.
Oh, yeah,
There you
that's
go.
why.
It's an
Yeah.
iPad.
It's an iPad.
But if
yeah.
you had an Apple Mac, it would do it there.
Okay.
So here is where I can just identify and find very quickly all my landscape pictures, because I've got them marked as 5 rated and a flag, and it's a smart collection. I don't have to look across it. You can do date. In fact, it's super powerful. I can come in here and say find metadata. I did this. I was trying to find one of the pictures, and I knew where I took it, but I couldn't find it. I went to Google. They have a map, so I can find. I need to be connected to the internet for this.
Oh.
So my camera doesn't do geotagging. So sometimes what I'll do, the new one does, it'll hook it up to my phone, but sometimes I'll take a picture of my phone, geotagged, and then I'll take all my pictures. it'll show up in here, geotagged, and I just drag all my pictures and drop them right on top of that, and they're all geotagged. And then when I knew where I wanted to find a picture, I went to the map, and it shows me you have 2 pictures in that area, and then I found it that way. Or I could find it by camera, by dates, so metadata.
Does a geotag give you a keyword also, maybe?
You can put them as many keywords as you want.
No, but I mean, when you geotag it, does it come up with a keyword like a country or anything? Like, does it?
I think it actually does, yes. If I geotag in Russia, it will come up with the city, the country, etc. for Russia.
And the time you took the picture and everything else.
I can choose by camera, I can choose by lens, I can choose by date, and any number of other things. I can choose by text thing. One last, and we're out of time. You have to get a plugin for this. So a Lightroom desktop will create the smart collection. So I just say, gather all of my 5-star flagged pictures. Okay? Now I want to put them out on the web. I used to use Google Photos and I'd have to upload them, but then I'd tweak a picture and I'd make it nicer. Delete the photo from Google Photo, put it back up there, kind of stuff.
It should sync.
Yeah, even better. Lightroom Cloud will sync your pictures for you, and it'll sync the smart views. So if you have with the photography plan, I think you can get 1 terabyte of cloud storage. I have 1,500, oh no internet. I have 1,500 pictures on this account, but because they're smart views, it's only using 50 meg of space. I can send anyone a link to the cloud account, and they can see all my 1,500 pictures. And when I change one, or I add one, it's automatically there. So thank you for letting me show you. There's a lot more. I'm excited about it.
Kevin wins.
Can I say something real quick before everybody leaves?
Sure.
I am happy to help provide treats, and I appreciate the fact that the cup was put back there for donations. But there's way more money in there than the cake cost. So, whoever dropped in the 20, go take it.
I put in 21s. Can I take out 50? No.
Whoever put in the 20,
That's
go
a building
take
there.
it. I'm not-
Put it towards
Next.
treats for the next meeting.